Distinguished guests, let us give another round of applause to our UMP choir. Allow me, with your permission, to welcome you to this important day, which is the third Dr. Enos Mabuza lecture on education. On education, because the person that we are gathered here in the name of was a passionate educator. He believed in education to uplift society. He practically demonstrated the importance of education. He knew that under the circumstances that his people were at, education was very important as a driver to enable social change. Distinguished guests, let me introduce myself. My name is Tlangelane Ubisi. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Liaison and Communication here at the University of Mpumalanga. And it's such a privilege and honor to have been afforded this opportunity today to be a program director for this important lecture in the calendar of the university. With your permission, allow me to acknowledge our host, our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Meyiwa, acknowledge the presence of the Mabuza family, and if I may say, would like to apologize for the delay. Having started minutes after the time that was scheduled, we were advised that Dr. Enos Mabuza was someone who was very punctual. And we need to live up to that standard of being punctual. We'd also like to acknowledge the management of the university that have just joined us. And we'd like to acknowledge our guests that are here from Penryn and Penridge. Thanks for joining us. We'd also like to acknowledge members of the clergy who are here, members of the business community, government, staff and students. It's a good afternoon. I was not welcoming you, I was acknowledging your presence. To officially welcome you, I'll invite Chancellor, Professor Meyiwa, to come and give us the welcoming remarks. Over to you, Prof.
I'm so moved. I'm moved by the fact that this man has reproduced himself. Hey, unestembu lo baba lo. I'm sitting next to his son and I'm saying, you can't go wrong, eh? Because we'll say, now I don't want to get off the script because I'll take long. My responsibility is to welcome you to this lovely lecture, but let me start off by apologizing for delaying a bit. We just couldn't pull ourselves away from our MENCO meeting. We ended up just abandoning the meeting. I had complained to my colleagues that, you know, it's a big day for us. Prof. Moses Musambewa knows. And he's one of the people who actually was talking more. So please blame it on him, despite being the sponsor as well. But we understand that ukufika kona besofika. Nomi kanjani. Program Director, thank you so much for ushering me in. Members of the Mabuza family, thank you for sharing this icon with us. We're humbled. Our distinguished guest speaker, my boss, Dr. Maduna, umuntu wamloya, actually in many ways than why. You know, when we have connection with people, sometimes vibes speak more than words. Mr. Sana Bernhardt, the CEO of Penrich and your team from Penryn, recipients of the Dr. E.J. Mabuza Scholarship Program, colleagues representing government, Her Royal Highness Princess Eureka Mokhane, Commissioner of the Commission for the Gender Equality, leaders from the business community, leaders from the religious community, leaders from the civil society and members thereof, members of the management committee of the University of Mpumalanga at all levels, the UMP Student Representative Council, organized labor, the gender community, students, and again our staff. This week has been a week in which I started engaging quite intimately. Nasixoxisana nabantu bam. I really very much value part of what they say, that they get here very early to clean halls like this one. We come to enjoy and we forget to invite them. I was very embarrassed. Ladies and gentlemen, Dumelang, Abshen, Lushan, Sanbonani in our language, that Nguni greetings, they say we acknowledge, we see you, we identify with you. We haven't even begun, Prof. Mbaba, to just analyze what these languages say, even in just greeting. And when we say this, we say Asanibona and Ni. We don't only one person, but your ancestors, your family, your village, and all of that. That's actually debate and discussion for some other days. The beauty of our language is so deep. So for me, it is just to say Sanbonani. It's my honor and my privilege this afternoon to present this welcome. Always start. Do you know number 3? How important number 3 is? Eh? Number 3 is very important. It's the 3rd annual lecture of an educationist of note. Reading about him at the weekend, I thought, my goodness, I didn't know that this was such a huge stature. You know, I had known him from other readings, but reading along a bio on him really humbled me so much. Today we're gathering not just only for ceremonial purposes, but it is an intellectual, historical, and number 3, which is a complete number in most religions, but it is also for an intention of morality. What does this mean for us as educationists, as leaders of the institution, to actually have the transformative first icon in this man being part of us, ours? And the fact that for this year's lecture we've picked up from our very own Adaje, our DNA creating opportunities. For us, it is actually to say, how do we create opportunities by taking a leaf from the humble beginnings of where Ubaba Mabuza, John Nganani, Enos. So parents, you know when parents give you so many names, demonstrate how much they love you. A man whose journey really came from the fact that it doesn't matter where you come from. Leadership is something that you're born with. And elements that I'm sure Dr. Maduna shall speak to that in his lecture, which I don't want to spoil. But as a province, as a university named after the province, we carry both not just only the privilege and this ceremony to be given this responsibility, mandate, and delegated authority by this family, Mabuza, to celebrate Ubaba Mabuza ngale ndlela esimcelebrate ngayo. Kodwa we want to take this as a responsibility as stewardship, to say that what does it mean for you individually? What does it mean for me? What role are you playing to ensure that this man who actually walked this earth, the son of the soil, despite what he did, we continue individually, collectively, as a province, as a university, as different cohorts, as management, to mobilize, to ensure that equity. Hence, we also have the CGE represented here, but more importantly nowadays, to ensure that we have innovation in what we do, the problems that we come along with, how are we innovative about them, to ensure that the commitment that this program, those that have seen the program, will see that it talks about, amongst other things, the importance of the fact that we committed to have people who are recipients of this scholarship, because asifuni lo msebenzi omkhulu kangaka walobaba owayemkhulu kangaka owaba neqhaza elikhulu kangaka kule lizwe elikhulu kangaka kule Mpumalanga enkulu kangaka kodwa kuphele kube kuncane. Ngokusho njalo sithi siyabonga ku Baba Mabuza. May his soul never rest in peace. Otherwise, if it does, we will stop celebrating him. His words, his work, his invaluable work that he did, and the partnership that we're having with the Penrich and Penryn College under the leadership of Mama Susana. Thank you so much that we're having that, and for advancing this access and excellence, which is part of our values that we so much pride ourselves with, not by just only putting it on paper, but living out through. And indeed, Ubaba Mabuza, having had all the kind of work that he did, and having come from the background that he did, the living legacy indeed in action being seen in that manner. So with those few words, I want to end by reflecting today on again what our icon, whom I know Baba Mabuza very much valued, hence his connections and his words on him, asserted that unless you change yourself, you're not going to be able to change the world. And therefore, it is also, let me just say, in the words that you speak that you're able to change or destroy the world. Umandela put it in that manner. I want to just paraphrase that, of course, taking from Mahatma Gandhi as well, in terms of indlela ohamba ngayo angabi indlela nje kuphela ephazamisa abanye abantu, kepha kube indlela ekhombisayo ukuthi what kind of trajectories and journeys that you want to do to have to reshape yourself, reshape the person next to you, reshape a collective, reshape economies, reshape education, exactly what role each and every one of us has that role. And therefore, this legacy that Baba Mabuza left with us, that you celebrate to this day, and that actually goes beyond the boundaries of institutional and government organizations, but goes into business, politics, goes into a whole lot number of elements that he was involved in, including farming, goes into even how our graduates, we expect them to be, is a demonstration that this lecture that you're about to listen to by Ubaba Maduna continues to grow the platform of your contribution, my contribution, our contribution to take Africa to a different place, to take SADC to a different place, to take Mpumalanga to a different place, to take even this family that gave us this icon to a different place. But indeed, it's not just only about him having walked the earth, but him having actually gotten us to engage with his leadership. Because leadership, as I said earlier, it is in each and every one of us. It is how you even lead your own life that you'll be able to make a contribution in whatever we expected to do to change the world. The African Union, I like them when they say, a different Africa is possible. A prosperous Africa is possible. An Africa that has gun silenced is possible. Could I include Iran in that? Because it's affected us in so many ways than one. But let's hold hands, Masieni, to ensure that this legacy of such a giant man becomes what we want it to be. Ngalawo mazwi ngithi namukelekile. Ngiyabonga.
Thanks a lot, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Meyiwa, for welcoming us. We really appreciate the message that you're sharing with us, that we need to understand the person that we're celebrating today. As an intellectual giant, an educationist, and a principled leader. Sometimes we never appreciate the importance of leadership until things go wrong. For change to happen, for social change to happen, it needs strong and principled leadership. Thanks once again. Let's give the VC another round of applause. We're now going to proceed with our program. I'll request our ICT team to share with us, or rather play the video of the university, because we think that is an important occasion for us to be able to demonstrate what we're doing as a university. Thereafter, we're going to invite the choir. I'll not be coming back to the podium after the video. The choir can come through and give us 2 items so we can be able to move to our keynote address. Thank you.
Tsaba tsaba koloi, koloi, ya moya kiena. Tsaba tsaba koloi, ya moya kiena. Tsaba tsaba koloi, ya moya kiena. Tsaba tsaba koloi, ya moya kiena.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. the UMP choir, they never disappoint. They always deliver. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we gathered here today to celebrate a multidimensional leader. And in his leadership, I can imagine the freedom of artistic expression was also part of that leadership. Today, we are gathered in a university where students can freely express themselves. Freedom to choose the kind of careers that they want, but also freedom to express themselves in a form of freedom of expression. No wonder we say that he was a multidimensional leader. Yes, he had passion for education, but he also had a passion for human rights. With that being said, I would like to invite the Deputy Vice-Chancellor responsible for postgraduate students, engagement and planning, Professor Moses Mbewe, to come forward and introduce our keynote speaker.
It's a wonderful day to remember our heroes, this particular one. I would like to take this moment this afternoon to recognize our first citizen at the university, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tenjiwe Meiwa, among us. But let me immediately rush to recognize Abomsheng, Shabalala. Ngithanda kubonga kakhulu i-opportunity yokusihlonipha nide la nto wenda lo mcimbi wethu ube nale decency lele fanele unikedwe yona ngoba leli lichawe lesikhuluma ngalo. And mina ngikhuluma ngoba it's in my lifetime. Bengi-junior member yeNyanza. Sineti-badge leti orange la. So ngikhuluma ngemuntu lengimadiko. Well, ngingakayi ekudzeni angiboleke i-protocol ya Vice-Chancellor. Ibe very comprehensive. I'm just borrowing that protocol because I think if I repeat it, I'll skip other people. All protocol observed as the Vice-Chancellor went through it, and I hope she agrees. It's too late to not give me that permission. Having observed that protocol, ladies and gentlemen, our students, staff members, Manko, and everyone who has taken the time to be here physically. But let me quickly also acknowledge the many people who are connecting online. So, uma ngabe labantu bonke bebala mhlambe nalethu lulebe kutabegcwele konke lapha kodwa ngoba kunengcubekela phambili ekuconnecta uma ungakhona kuba khona physically. Ngisho ke manje ke kubo bonke ngithi good afternoon. Umsebenzi wami ke, my work here is to introduce our guest speaker. But our guest speaker is a very accomplished individual. So I will pick ngidawuthatha amazubela or a few things I will pick. Because if I read the biography, I will take a lot of his time when we need to hear from him and not from me. So Dr. Maduna was born in this place. And if I say in this place, it's because it's a stone throw from where I am standing today. He went to a primary school. He got his primary school education at Ngodwana and Kapsewop. Consequently, he obtained his junior certificate with distinction in 1971. And in 1971 at Kumbula High School, which is situated just outside White River, isenzaweni lesibita ukuthi kusengotini. He then went on to Amanzi Mtoti Zulu Training College, which is called Adams College, situated in Adams Mission in 1974. He went on to the University of Limpopo, where he registered for a B.Pharm degree. However, because of political reasons, he had to leave that and go to the University of Natal for an MB-CHB logi degree about Togotela in 1980. There are many hospitals that I can mention here, but the most known one here is Temba Hospital Gapogweni, and there are many others where he contributed. But he went then back to school and obtained his master's degree in family medicine, which is something, this is called a specialization, which you don't find in many GPs, because he's not a general, he's a family, specialized in family medicine in 1987. I know a lot of our students and some staff were not born by then. I was. So, and he got that from what we then called Medunsa, Medical University of South Africa, which is now called Sefako Makgatho. In 1988, Dr. Maduna was appointed by the then Chief Minister of Gangwane Homeland Government to the position of Minister of Health and Welfare. And I just wanted to remind the audience, Dr. Babe, Enos Mabuza ngilo appointer. But he played a major role in being his teacher and helping him through many ways, including raising bursaries for him to go through school. So I did not just choose a speaker. I chose the one who knows the person we are celebrating. So he took part even in CODESA talk when there were negotiations, and he was the leader of the Group 3 CODESA group, and played many other public roles, which if I continue to speak here, I will not finish. But let me mention that he became a senior lecturer at Medunsa. So he participated in actual training. He took many academic trips to other African countries. He was the Chief Executive Officer for Dr. George Mkari and many other positions which I'm deliberately now skipping to save time. Recently, as 2010, he joined the Department of Defense as a Lieutenant Colonel and Chief Specialist responsible for family medicine and primary health care, based at Military One, and you will remember Military One, it's where our politicians are usually admitted when they are sick. At the same time, he was the head of the South African Military Service Pindisa Research Project on HIV. There are many other contributions, but let me not skip that. Until recently, he was a councillor, a member of council. That is why my boss says my boss to him, because he was a council member of the University of Mpumalanga. He just finished his term in this quarter. So without going further, and you can read the biography, he has literally contributed a whole lot in this institution's establishment, and also in having worked very closely with Babe, Dr. Enos Mabuza. Ngithi Babe ukuze ni understand ukuthi noma ngisebenzise doctor, giving Babe, that's how much I respect him. So help me, Madam Vice-Chancellor, to welcome our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Maduna, to take the stage.
Ngitsite nangisukuma lapha phasi ngabona lamapodium amabili, ngiyababona lomnye uya ngale lomnye uyita ngala, ngabe sengenda naku labathi piki piki manje ngitsite nangifika egcineni ngathi ngidawuthatha le. The Mabuza family, Bomshengo, Boshabalala, Tonga Mavuso, Bostwaba Siltuli, Bahamba, Namage, Atruba Labanvanembili. The council is not here. I haven't seen any council member. Bengidawuthi nje lapho kubukhona chairman ubabe Mahlalela naye ngalokhu njalo ngititfobe kuye. The UNP management, of course, under the very able leadership of the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tenji Wemeiwa, Nyawose somile lihle lenomlomo lobovu. Distinguished guests, community leaders, I've heard that there are people who are from the clergy as well. Community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed both a privilege and a profound responsibility for me to stand before you this afternoon at this memorial lecture where we honor the late Dr. Enos John Ganani Mabuza, who was a friend, who was a father, who was a peer, who was a member of the community that shaped and produced him. Gimi abengogonge. Didn't know whether to call him brother, whether I should have said father. To him, he was just that figure, which was complete. Dr. Mabuza was not merely a leader, he was a teacher, a strategist, a visionary, and above all, a servant of the people. Maybe I should highlight and emphasize that he was indeed a servant of the people. He believed that education was the key to unlocking opportunity, and that good leadership must be rooted in ethical governance and community empowerment, which are characteristics that are very rare this time around when we look at our leadership currently. As you'll see from the program, he was born about 87 years ago in 1939, born in this very part of the country, not far away from here in Barberton. That makes him, therefore, a true son of the soil on our side. His primary education, and I'll repeat this because it shows us that he had very, very humble beginnings and worked his way up to what he still is today, the figure that we all want to emulate in trying to develop the country and turn it into the democracy that we want it to be. So he obtained his primary education at the Shiva Mine and the Barberton Community Schools. That has been said, that is in front of you, but I just want to do it for emphasis purposes. Because if we don't know this person that we're talking about, it will be like talking about something that didn't exist. But if we emphasize and make you realize that it is possible from the very, very beginnings that are humble to have somebody who develops to an appreciable position and has that influence in the country that Enos Mabuza did have. Obtained his junior certificate at the Mjindini Secondary School in 1957 and went on to obtain his primary teacher's certificate at the Evangelical Teachers Training College in Vryheid. Later completed his matric in 1964, his BA degree in 1969, with isiZulu and psychology as majors. Lele psychology sengiyavisisa nyalo kuthi lo muntu indzaba bese sinasikhuluma naye asifunze sisangene eminyango abene psychology uthi nawuta nje akubona ukuthi lo uta ngaloku naloku naloku asebenzisa le psychology. Those of us who experienced him, those of us who worked with him, will know what I'm talking about. His honors degree, as I've said, he obtained in 1974, and in May 1993, the Rhodes University Lelapa Emakanda, Grahamstown is now called Emakanda, in Eastern Cape, conferred on him a doctorate of law, realizing and recognizing the good work that he had done over the years. He lectured at the Evangelical Teachers Training College during 1960 and went on the following year to teach at Mgwenya Higher Primary School in White River, and later moved on to the Ngwane Higher Primary School in Barberton. That was in 1963. I'm doing this so that we know our leader. We know who we're talking about. He returned to Mphindini Secondary School, his previous high school, as deputy headmaster in 1964. And by 1968, he was appointed headmaster of Kumbula High School in White River. Kumbula was a new school that we shifted to as students from what we used to be called Nsikazi Secondary School. Lebeila Petwaleni, yabeseke yakhiwa ngale yantshintsha libito yaba yiKhumbula High School. So he was appointed there as head of the institution in 1968. That's where we met, and I'll tell you a little bit about our interaction with him, me as his student, him as my principal and teacher. I'll talk a little bit about that. 1968, that was the appointment, and then in 1972, and he was 33 years at that stage, he was appointed as an inspector of education. I'm looking at that 33 years, and I'm saying, just imagine a 33-year-old already being an inspector of schools. He really did work as a young person and came to that level to be recognized and appointed as such. So he became the youngest black educationist in South Africa. He became the first outside Swaziland, or Eswatini. He became the first person who was an author of Siswati books. The book called A Grammar of the Swati Language, he wrote, being helped by Professor Zirfochel of UNISA. Now, his words, they are words that he would utter from time to time to make us realize that we can go anywhere for education, for work, but there's no place that is better than home. At some stage, you have to go back home, and you owe it to those people back home to benefit from what you've become. And he says in his words, East, West, home is best. And that reminds us that true progress should begin at home, in our households, in our schools, in our communities back at home. And he did exactly that. He didn't just say it, but that's what he lived, that's what he did, going to many places, but coming back home to serve the people that need his services. In April 1976, he was elected to the Swazi Territorial Authority and became Chief Executive Councillor of the Kangwane Legislative Assembly, the first Kangwane Legislative Assembly. After the dissolution of the first Kangwane Legislative Assembly, he was re-elected and became the Chief Minister of the Kangwane administration, a position he retained after being re-elected in 1983. In 1978, Dr. Mabuza founded the Inyanza National Movement that Professor Mbewe is speaking about. This was a political organization that was to be the leading party in the Kangwane area those days. We will recall that in 1986, thinking out of the box as he was, or as he did, he led a 21-person delegation to meet with the ANC in Lusaka. You might think that that was not important because this is a homeland leader who went to Lusaka to do what? But on the agenda of that trip, he had to discuss with the ANC about the future of this country and the future of the very homelands that were there. That's where the notion of independent homelands was discussed at length to say, how do we frustrate the process that the apartheid government had embarked on to push Kangwane to an independent status? There was understanding between the ANC and Dr. Mabuza that he would go as far as the self-governing status of Kangwane and nothing more, unlike the other 4 states which opted for independence. Now, on the one side, the government of the time wanted Kangwane to become an independent state, rule itself, and get cut from South Africa. On the other side, they also used another strategy to try and attain this Swaziland so that it moves away from South Africa. Now, many people don't understand why the apartheid system was structured like that. It's important for us, I think, to understand that the situation in South Africa and the complaint that all countries, progressive countries in the world, had as a problem is led the minority regime of the time to try and convert itself into a majority regime. Now, very interesting. The majority of people in South Africa are blacks, and what the whites wanted is to kick out all the blacks and be left with very few that would be a minority in a South Africa that the apartheid system was creating. Now, some people fell for that, but Dr. Enos Mabuza realized that if he doesn't fight against that, his people would become Swaziland, or Eswatini residents and lose their South African status. So he fought that. He refused independence, and that's why today we sit here still as South Africans. And that's a great job that he did, coming to think of it and looking at it retrospectively in terms of how he approached the whole thing. And indeed, it's more than a tribute to Dr. Mabuza. In my view, it is a living dialogue that seeks to connect past leadership with the present societal challenges that we're currently confronted with. Based on Dr. Mabuza's visionary leadership, education, and ethical governance, and community-driven development, I think the need for this lecture becomes clear. He believed that sustainable development begins with visionary leadership. And that kind of leadership he lived, that kind of leadership he actually practiced. As a leader, he saw beyond immediate constraints and imagined a future where communities thrive with dignity, opportunity, and shared purpose. That's what he believed in. His role was not only to articulate this future, but to mobilize institutions, to mobilize partners and citizens around a common horizon of possibility. While his visionary leadership set the direction, he contended that education equips societies with the knowledge. It's good to have direction in the form of vision, but without the support of education, you can't do anything to pursue that direction you've set for yourself. Through education, individuals gain the capacity to participate meaningfully in shaping their own futures, strengthening the human capital that underpins long-term transformation. Dr. Mabuza realized once more that vision and education or knowledge are not enough. They require ethical governance to steward his legacy through. Adopting ethical governance as an element of his legacy, Dr. Mabuza made decisions with integrity, with transparency and accountability. Ethical governance ensured that resources at his disposal used responsibly so that institutions that he was placed in charge of earn the public trust that they required, and that development benefits are distributed fairly, especially to those historically excluded. Ethical governance creates the enabling environment in which both leadership and education can translate into real, meaningful, and measurable change. At the heart of his legacy was community-driven development, which grounded transformation in the lived realities, priorities, and agents of the people he served. When communities define their own needs, co-design solutions, and lead implementation, development becomes more relevant. more inclusive, and more sustainable. For Dr. Mabuza, community leadership closed the loop as it validated his vision, strengthened governance through participation, and reinforced education as a tool for empowerment. I've touched on the question of using resources carefully, and a thing that he looked at. I can share with you that in Gangwane, if you go into the history thereof, the highest budget that we had as a government was a lot of money if 650 or so billion is what you think we could survive on. But he made sure that those resources that were given to him are used mostly for the actual development of the people that he served. Saya ke tsine lapha basibita bo minister sibakhulu sibakhulu man sibukelele ukuthi sitawuphatheka ke njengabo minister wasibita lo mdzala wathi lalelani ke. We have limited resources, and I want all these resources to be used carefully, because my mission is that of developing my people. When it came to, I'm looking at what's happening now, but during our time, he just said, you are not going to get expensive vehicles to be driven around as ministers. But I can tell you, starting with him, what it's saying, imoto lapha, Toyota Cressida. Kumbula leya moto, light brown, which he was using as the chief minister. Lenvo yabo Mercedes, lenvo lesibona nyalo, beingeko. Because he wanted to use resources carefully. I personally was bought a Jetta, as minister, driving around in a Jetta, 6 valve. What, 6 what? 6V, whatever. Angishayela ke umshayeli wami ngikuleyo moto iJetta, and I was doing my work. And what's also important to know is that we didn't have these vehicles kube nathi moto timbili embili, kube nathi mbili emva kuthiwe ke entourage ya minister. I was in that car with my driver, period. And we were not killed by anybody. We managed to penetrate every corner of the homeland and do our work, which was we were supposed to do. That's how he was strict when it came to issues of money. But we could, using those resources, build infrastructure, roads, we built schools, we built everything that we could do using those limited resources. That's the kind of leader I'm talking about. In the considered view of Dr. Mabuza, the 4 pillars that I've just gone through made a good, coherent model of change in institutions that he was in charge of. We're talking about vision, we're talking about education, which builds capability. We're talking about ethical governance which ensured fairness. We're talking about community-driven development, anchored transformation in local ownership. When aligned, these pillars create a development pathway that is not only effective, but deeply human, rooted in dignity, shared in responsibility, and long-term resilience. My journey with Dr. Mabuza, as I've indicated, started at Kumbula when I was a student there in 1969. Additional to the headship of the institution, he was still able to come and teach us, as I remember, English and social studies. Social studies, angiboni ukuthi asesekhona lawo ma-subjects nyalo. But he was teaching us those. His extraordinary demeanor made him to command a lot of respect from both us as students and the teaching staff. He was a real, if you talk about commander-in-chief, you're talking about Enos Mabuza. He knew that being a leader required of him not only to be exemplary, but to live by his teachings and policies. His influence on us as his students contributed immensely to our performance. With his support and guidance, I proceeded with my career to high school and tertiary institutions, and influenced by his belief that no matter where you go, home is best, I returned home after completing my training as a doctor. When I passed my junior certificate exams, I remember going to him, asahlala lapha kaBhokweni. He used to have a four-roomed house in Kabokweni. And I went to him and said, "Sir, I see this distinction or good pass that I've got, but I'm just coming to inform you that I'm unable to pursue my studies because I just don't have the resources that are required for that." Just to emphasize how he was committed to helping other people, he said to me, "Look, you go to the school you have applied to, which was Adam's Mission, Amanzimtoti. I will talk to your principal there, and I'll make other means to make sure that you have the support that you need." And indeed, he did that. He went to the South African Institute of Race Relations and applied or requested them to give me some budget or some loan or bursary. It was a bursary because I didn't pay it back. And when I came to Amanzimtoti, my things were just ready, and I proceeded with my studies. That's the person we're talking about. Now, after completing my internship and serving the community as a medical officer at Temba Hospital, Dr. Mabuza appointed me to become medical superintendent at Temba Hospital. Now, Temba Hospital initially was under the central government, but when Gangwane gained the self-governing status, it was given Temba Hospital, among others, to manage and run. Now, this was an institution that was an apartheid institution. I'm the only black doctor there. The facilities are all segregated according to your race. And as superintendent, the question was, do I use the non-white lavatories and facilities, or what do I just do as the head of the institution? The dining rooms were segregated. There was a dining room for doctors who were white, of course, no dining room for black doctors. The nurses had their dining area. Everything was just segregated. I made this medical superintendent of that facility. You can imagine how I went to the workshop, instructed 2 gentlemen there to come with a hammer, a screwdriver, and a chisel, so that we could remove all the signs that segregated the facilities, so that all of us can use them equally. It created a lot of storm, and when I realized that I was losing a lot of doctors as a result of that, I went to him and said, I have this challenge at the institution where you have appointed me to be medical superintendent. The whites just won't use facilities or allow the blacks to use facilities that were categorized as white facilities. And he said, look, you use your own judgment in terms of how you run that facility, but running it, you are going to do. Keep me informed about progress that you make. So I had to do that. Change everything. Now, the one area where there was a big challenge was when it came to transport. Now, there were no black doctors. I was the only one at Temba. And all the white doctors would be transported by a government vehicle from Nelspruit via White River to the hospital every day without paying anything. And then I said in a meeting of the staff that, look, we are going to change this somewhat. The government transport for white doctors coming from Nelspruit and White River will continue because we need them. But I'm now going to take a bus which used to be on the premises. That bus, I instructed the drivers to take it and start from Matsulu via Kanyamazane, via Kamsogwaba to the hospital and pick up all the black staff members to work and back without them also paying anything. I had to have a second bus that transports staff members from Malikutu to the hospital. I'm just sharing this to show you how tough things were, but with the advice of Dr. Mabuza, we could manage that situation. And here we are today. Dr. Mabuza's vision for the future of our country included a call for multi-sectoral collaboration, where government, the private sector, and communities work together. He believed that to achieve this objective, sustainability should be emphasized, whereby systems that endure are built, and that innovation should not be seen as disruption, but as empowerment rooted in community values. Today, I therefore want to put a few issues on the table for us to consider and collectively deliberate on, so that we translate those issues into programs of impact. The three things that must guide us, though, as we do that, is to look at genuine multi-sectoral collaboration, genuine systems built for sustainability beyond any individual. And thirdly, innovation that places real power in the hands of households and communities. Dr. Mabuza's values, when I look at them, tally well with those of the university. If you look at the university values, I want to believe that Dr. Mabuza would have accepted this without any problem. Now, as far as that, I realize that we do put them in all meetings or events that are happening at the university. But I'm concerned that if we don't subject them to an interdisciplinary framework that will enhance their interconnectedness and interdependence and treat them as a whole rather than as isolated entities, we will have a challenge. Now, we need, therefore, to create a value system for stakeholder engagement involving shifting from a stakeholder-only focus when you talk values to a holistic model that generates mutual benefits for all stakeholders. And in this regard, we need a robust system that balances competing interests by building trust, collaboration, and long-term value, ultimately transforming stakeholder engagement into a strategic advantage. Now, if we are, as UMP, to achieve the envisaged robust system that Dr. Mabuza would preach, UNP should consider expanding these values, not only to focus on itself, but to enhance stakeholder and community development. This requires moving beyond internal culture statements and embedding those values into practical systems, partnerships, and accountability mechanisms. The evaluation of the success depends on measuring both internal alignment and external impact. The steps to be considered in this regard, I want to suggest, should include translating the values into action so that you don't only have values standing there for us to memorize, but let's turn them into action so that we are able to measure a level of success from time to time. We have currently memoranda of understanding that the university has signed with various stakeholders. I think it's important in those memoranda of understanding or partnerships that we have to have those expanded to cover the very stakeholders who are engaging, to cover the communities that we are serving, so that the university can talk holistically when it talks about any one of these values. After expanding the values as proposed, the evaluation of their successful application could include the determination of internal indicators, because if you are going to measure what you are doing, you need to develop indicators. But what one is trying to propose here is to say, let those indicators, yes, be internal and cover the university, but there should be those as well that are external to cover the stakeholders and communities, so that when you look at whether you have been able to implement these values successfully, you talk about every stakeholder that is affected by that value. The external indicators, of course, will include, among others, some feedback from communities in terms of whether the projects that we do with communities are making the impact that we would like them to make. It will ensure that there is resonance between the university and other stakeholders and the communities that we serve. One can summarize this by saying that organizational values become powerful drivers of stakeholder and community development when they are translated into measurable actions, embedded in partnerships, and evaluated through both qualitative and quantitative lenses. Success is not just about internal alignment, but about visible, sustained impact in the community that we're serving. That's about values. The second area that I would like to place on the table for serious dialogue, based on Dr. Mabuza's fight for dignity and opportunity in a time of political and social upheaval, is that we too, this time of our lives, during this democracy, do face certain upheavals, but of a different nature. Now, if you look, if I can use the example, again leaning to my side now of health, we have non-communicable diseases that are silently eroding the health of many households within those communities. This is an area that needs attention. Inequities in access to health care still persist. Many people are not going to that clinic which is nearby to be checked. They stay home. Some of them don't realize that they have these diseases for them to be treated. And it becomes important for us to have that outreach program to go into those households. And if anything, do a community diagnosis and see how many in each household have diabetes mellitus, for example, how many have hypertension, how many have cancer, and so on and so forth, so that we can come with interventions and refer them to the relevant institutions so that they are taken care of. But in terms of the risks that lead to these non-communicable conditions, I think communities need to be taught to be aware that if you smoke, for example, what chronic ailment will you develop if you continue with that habit? If you drink excessively, what diseases are you likely to end up with? If you do anything else that will lead to cancer, to avoid that risk factor. That is the outreach program that I'm proposing we should consider so that we interact with households, we interact with people in those households, and that will make our intervention programs to have more impact than what is currently is the situation. The third and last issue that I would like to put on the table relates to one of the lesser known but profoundly significant chapters of Dr. Mabuza's legacy, which is his role in the establishment of Penryn College, which is just nearby here. As a founding Penryn Council member, he helped shape the school's ethos at a time when South Africa was still from the constraints of racial division. Dr. Mabuza championed the idea that Penryn should not become an exclusive institution, but a beacon of inclusive, community-rooted institution. His influence ensured that the school's mission aligned with the values he lived by, and that is equity, dignity, and opportunity for all. Today, the continued impact of Penryn and its outreach arm, Penrich, stands as a living testament to his belief that education must serve as both a bridge and a catalyst for societal transformation. Dr. Mabuza is no longer among us, but it is important for us to still revive his role in the form of something that will be in his place. And that is what I want to put on the table for consideration. We need to close that gap by creating a vehicle to fulfill his dream. He is not there. He wrote his book, if you like, and indicated what he believes in and how he sees this country moving forward. And I think the fact that he's not among us shouldn't make us stop looking for something that will continue to play that role. I'm proposing the establishment, consideration should be given to the establishment of an Enos Mabuza Foundation. Foundation will be the vehicle with which and through which we do all these things that he wanted us to do. Such a foundation would institutionalize his commitment to education, ethical governance, and community-driven development by creating programs that nurture young leaders, strengthen schools, and support community innovation. It would serve as a convening platform for multi-sectoral collaboration, bringing together government, academia, civil society, and the private sector in the very manner he championed. That's what I'm proposing. Most importantly, a foundation bearing his name would ensure that his legacy is not confined to memory. It becomes a living catalyst for dignity, opportunity, and sustainable development in the whole province of Mpumalanga and beyond. I believe that working together with the Mabuza family and the UNP, the UNP can facilitate the establishment of this proposed foundation so that UNP still plays its role in terms of being the pioneer of everything academic in the province, and any research work that relates to that, and any implementation of all these wonderful ideas that Dr. Mabuza had across the province. This will be additional, of course. We do know that there is a Dr. Iji scholarship program that is run by the Tebe Foundation, which was formed in 2016 and created as part of Tebe's Founders Legacy Program to recognize the role of Dr. Mabuza, the role that he played in founding the Tebe Investment Corporation alongside Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and Beas Nodier. The foundation that I'm talking about will have a different mandate compared to that. so that this one, that one is proposing, focuses on the values that we have spoken about, on Dr. Mabuza's comprehensive approach to the development of our people. I conclude by noting that, by the way, we give this lecture in April month, which is a month that for South Africans is a freedom month. And a few days down the line, next week, we will be celebrating the National Freedom Day in South Africa. I think to us, this should not be just a public holiday. It is a national reminder of the sacrifices made by people like Dr. Mabuza for democracy, and it's a call to continue building a society based on justice, equality, and human dignity. For communities in Mpumalanga, the day should resonate strongly with local leaders like Dr. Mabuza, who fought for autonomy and education, aligning with the broader struggle for freedom. That is what we must look at when we celebrate the 27th of April. And as we honor Dr. Mabuza today, let us remember also that, by the way, memorials are not only about remembrance, they are about responsibility. If indeed we like and buy into Dr. Mabuza's philosophy, let us then take the necessary responsibility of having that achieved through various programs that we put in place. We are custodians of this legacy. His belief is in education, integrity, and community empowerment. These must live on in our actions. On integrity and ethical governance, I'm just quoting people who had similar thinking to Dr. Mabuza. I will quote here one, Chinua Achebe, whose reflections on leadership in Africa mirror those of Dr. Mabuza's. They insist on integrity and ethical governance. Dr. Mabuza refused to accept independence for Kangwane, resisted Pretoria's manipulation, and protected his people's dignity. Achebe's framing of integrity captures the moral courage that defines his leadership. Achebe had this to say about this whole thing, and I quote, "One of the truest tests of integrity is its blunt refusal to be compromised." And I think Dr. Mabuza showed us exactly how to resist things that will compromise us. On education, dignity, and opportunity, another writer, Amartya Sen, did work which aligns perfectly with Dr. Mabuza's belief that education and community empowerment are the foundation of sustainable development. Dr. Mabuza saw as freedoms that communities must own. Sen's framing gives academic weight to his lived philosophy, and in this regard, I quote her, "Development can be seen as expanding the real freedoms that people enjoy." That's what Amartya Sen had to say. On dignity, consciousness, and community empowerment, Steve Biko had something very interesting to say, and his ideas echoed Mabuza's commitment to dignity, self-determination, and community-driven development. Dr. Mabuza's investment in education, in language, and community leadership was fundamentally about freeing the mind and restoring agency. In this regard, Steve Biko had this to say, and I quote, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." That's what Steve Biko had to say, because indeed, if the oppressor is there and you allow your mind to succumb to what the oppressor would like you to do, then you have a problem. Lastly, on leadership, service, and community, Mandela had to say something about that. And his reflections align with Mabuza's servant leadership style. It captures Mabuza's leadership style as guiding quietly, empowering others, and placing community at the center. Nelson Mandela had this to say about this aspect of leadership, and I quote, "A leader is like a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, letting the most nimble to go out ahead, leading from the back as compared to leading from the front." Nelson Mandela believed that it's best to lead from the back and give people that space to make decisions, and you guide them like you would do with the sheep that you're heading. I have said a mouthful this afternoon, but the take home, in my view, is the creation of the structures I've spoken about. And I want to underline the need for a foundation that will carry out the tasks that we have before us. The memorial lectures will continue, but if we don't create these projects, we will run out of matter to talk about here. But if we establish a vehicle to take these ideas, convert them into actionable programs or projects, we will have a lot when speakers come to talk about Dr. Mabuza, because they'll be focusing mainly on the achievements that shall have been made when implementing and taking his ideas forward. On that note, to thank you all for listening, but the work is there. Dr. Mbewe, it looks like you have a lot in your plate in this regard, but let the struggle continue. Dr. Mabuza has left us with an instruction to take this process forward in his absence. I thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Maduna, for taking us through the journey of Dr. Enos Mabuza and for sharing the lessons. Indeed, true progress should begin at home. As you rightfully said, that at the heart of his legacy, it was community-driven development. And as you rightfully shared with us, that Dr. Mabuza believed that to develop the community, you need to develop the people. But you're further challenging us as an institution to rethink our stakeholder value proposition, to rethink how do we take the lessons of Dr. Enos Mabuza to ensure that we can have an impact in our communities and in that we seek to represent. A true servant of the
like Penryn. But Penreach emerged from a different question. What does it take to move from impact in one place, in one school, to impact across a whole system and a whole society? And let me just mention that as I'm standing here today, that has become a reality where Penreach started reaching 24 teachers in 1994. Today, we reach over 3,700 educators, practitioners, and school leaders on a daily basis. And then thirdly, how do we ensure alignment between practice, research, and government so that we can really scale impact? Because what we see is that strong programs alone are not enough. Without alignment, our impact will remain fragmented. And this is where institutions like the University of Mpumalanga becomes critical, not only as a center of knowledge, but as a partner in generating evidence that shapes real practice. Certainly at Penreach, we are excited about the Memorandum of Understanding with the university and the research opportunities that we are pursuing together. That will be of mutual benefit, as Dr. Maduna mentioned, and focused on the 25 projects across Mpumalanga, ranging from early childhood development to interventions in grade 12. Because ultimately, the question isn't about what works in theory, it's about what will work in the classroom with the teachers in the real conditions that they face. And how do we take what we do and the learning that we generate back into the system? So perhaps the first chapter of Dr. Mabuza's legacy was about building institutions. The next chapter is about strengthening systems through evidence, through partnerships, and a much deeper understanding that we need to have of context. And that's the responsibility that sits with all of us in this room. Thank you for reminding us of that. Siyabonga.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Perrin. Let's give her another round of applause. Indeed, the vision of Dr. E.J. Mabuza lives on, and we can only continue with it through collaboration. Collaboration that works, collaboration that benefits the communities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have almost come to the end of our program. I would like to invite the Deputy Vice-Chancellor responsible for teaching and learning, Professor Dabana Maselesede, to come and give us the vote of thanks. Over to you, Prof.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You sound so tired. Oh, thank you. Dimasiari, Dumelang. Abshe, Molwen, Sanbonan, Visi. That's better. On behalf of our Vice-Chancellor, Prophet Njiwe Meiwa, it is indeed an honor for me to give a vote of thanks this afternoon. I want to recognize or acknowledge and appreciate MENCO members, MENCO, the fact that you joined this function this afternoon. We appreciate you. The fact that you took time out of your busy schedule, we are very appreciative. All UMP staff members, thank you for availing yourselves. Labor representatives, SRC, to all students who are here, I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is a great opportunity for learning. Can you applaud yourselves, students? I also need to acknowledge the online guests and say to them, thank you for joining us. I also want to appreciate all honored guests. We really thank you for participating in this event. The leaders, religious leaders who are here, community members who are here, the gender forum, all protocol observed, just know that we appreciate your presence. To the family of Enos Mabuza, we are very grateful for this partnership. You made us realize that you had a giant, can never forget. And I'm definitely sure that as a family, you contributed to this giant. And therefore, we want to thank you. We appreciate you. And I request that we applaud them. I am definitely sure that this partnership will grow. This is our third year. We believe we are growing and we will grow, and something out of this better than what we expect now will come out. To our Vice-Chancellor, we want to thank you for such a warm welcome, and we appreciate what you have said. And I could hear that you are talking to us, telling us about the importance of innovation. We were listening to you. As we know, you were talking about welcoming us to this event, but we know you were sending a message across. And let me assure you that we have listened and we're taking lessons at what you have said. We need to change ourselves before we expect the next person to change. So for that, we appreciate you and thank you very much for your leadership. Can you applaud our VC, please? Oh, yes, you can't be tired. No, 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 no. Let's just, interact and appreciate our leader, our visionary. To our DVC, Postgraduate Studies Engagement and Planning, Professor Mbewe, thank you for introducing our guest speaker so eloquently. And we also want to thank you for playing a major role in organizing this event. And thank you for the work that you are doing for the university. Can we appreciate him, please? To Dr. Maduna, our guest speaker, I was sitting there listening to you. And two things that I picked, which I think they're very critical. You know, as you were talking, we could see and realize that Dr. Mabuza grew up from humble beginnings. And you were also showing us that it's important for us as an institution to know our history, because our history will shape who we are and it will guide us as we move forward. And for that, we really appreciate. For me, your speech was an eye-opener. And I believe the students as well will share the same sentiments, that indeed it was an eye-opener, and it was also a very encouraging to learn that through this lecture, it brought hope to us, that even to our students, that it is possible to make change, to change your environment. It doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter where you were born. What matters is the vision that you should be having. So with that, Dr. Maduna, we really appreciate this speech. We really appreciate the fact that you really presented to us a giant who made it against all odds. And the visionary leadership that you have actually displayed to us, how he also contributed to your being, also is very encouraging to us. If you see a doctor that grew up under the leadership of Dr. Mabuza, and you see him becoming a minister, even driving a jet, it didn't matter. But he made it because somebody who, in the name of Dr. Mabuza, contributed to his development and his growth. So for that, I think we need to really appreciate the speech and say to ourselves, he has left us with a challenge, because he brought 4 pillars about Dr. Mabuza. He was a visionary, he believed in education. He also spoke about ethical governance and community-driven projects that leads to development. With that, I think these are issues that are still relevant even today. And I'm saying, with the speech that was given to us today, I think Dr. Maduna is saying, go on with that bait. We need to take it forward and continue running with it, making sure that the life of Dr. Mabuza continues. We continue to talk about what he did. His legacy continues. And that even when we grow as an institution, we should make sure that we continue to develop that which Dr. Mabuza has started. Can we give Dr. Maduna a round of applause, appreciating the information he gave us? Thank you. He also left us with a challenge that we need to start a foundation. I know our visionary will start talking about it in the next meeting, but we will look at it, and I'm sure our leader, as you know her, she will talk about it. And I must say, Dr. Maduna, you have left us with a challenge and a problem to some of us, and thank you for that. Thank you. To the recipient, Elizabeth, you know, there's nothing that makes a person who has given you that bursary happy. When you see excellence at its best, graduating cum laude, I think the scholarship that was given to you, it's actually has made an impact in your life. And I think what you said is actually a message that whenever you receive, I'm talking about even NSFAS, you also, when you receive, dear students, take it as a scholarship as well. And, perform excellently so. And remember that it's an opportunity that was granted to you. It's a privilege. And once you respect that gift, you will sit down and spend sleepless nights preparing yourself for the coming exams. Can we applaud our recipients? You actually showed excellence, and you also showed appreciation for the scholarship, and that for us is very important. To Miss Susanna, I don't want to pronounce your surname because I don't want to mess, my tongue can't twist. Susanna, I think we really appreciate what you have said. I see you and the institution carrying the baton, running with it. For 37 years, you have succeeded. And I believe greater things are coming as we partner in the name of Dr. Mabuza. Can we then applaud them and appreciate what they are doing? You spoke about 2 chapters. I was looking forward to more chapters. And actually, I am looking forward for chapter 3 and 4 in partnership with UMP. And we are going to do that together. So we appreciate the work that you are doing. Let me thank our program director who does the work in a very outstanding manner, anytime, any day. Let's appreciate him. I also want to appreciate the organizers of this event and also our choir. Oh, Love My Campus. Today you were wearing Love My Campus. You were extremely excellent. We know that when you take the stage, you represent the values of UMP, and we really appreciate you. You really made this day a success. We also want to appreciate, can we applaud your colleagues? They've done well. You know, when they stand up here, we know we are going to dance. The little girls and boys in us really come out because, you know, Africa celebrate through singing. And Africa, even when we are sad, we still sing. So our choir, you're doing a great job. To ICT, to our photographer, we want to thank you for continually building our institutional memory. You saw how beautiful UMP is? Oh, Claire, can we applaud? Can we applaud our institution? They can call us a new university, but our institution is so beautiful. You walk around, you find students who are proudly UMP, who greets as Africans, who pick papers from the ground. I can assure you, visitors, walk around, you won't get a piece of paper in such a big institution. So that shows that we love our campus. And for that, let's applaud ourselves. And I want to thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, DVC, TNL, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of our program. We're going to make few announcements. The first one is that we're requesting for the official photograph of the third Dr. Enos Mabuza lecture on education. So we're going to request our distinguished guests that are sitting in front there. Mabuza, our speaker, Dr. Maduna, the Vice-Chancellor. They'll be joined by Davis Simbewe and the Mabuza family. Photographer, may you please assist. We need to pull that banner up here so that they can be able to have that picture. And then the second picture, we're also going to invite the other members of Manco to join them. The third picture, we're going to invite our partners to come and join them. Don't worry, our photographer is quite quick, so it won't take long. And in terms of refreshments, so we've made arrangements for refreshments. We're going to request that members of the Mabuza family, our guest speaker, the management of the university, and guests from the business community, from Penryn, from the clergy, join the Mabuza family and the distinguished guests at the veranda just outside where you came in. Our staff and students, refreshments have been prepared for you at the dining hall. So at the dining hall, just the one next to the main entrance, we have also prepared some refreshments for you. With that, we thank you.